You've probably heard this one, right? Your grandmother, your neighbor, they all told you to put crushed eggshells in the planting hole to stop blossom end rot. But what if I told you the science tells a completely different story?
So here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to crack open this old garden myth. Then we'll play detective and find the real culprit behind your tomato troubles. And you'll want to stick around, because I'm going to share a new science-backed strategy that will get you that perfect harvest.
All right, first up, let's talk about that advice you've probably heard a million times, the one passed down for generations. It all comes down to stopping this one super frustrating problem: blossom end rot.
This right here, this is the sight every tomato grower just dreads. You've got this beautiful red tomato, you pick it, you flip it over, and bam, that ugly black patch. And the common wisdom, right? It says the cause is simple. Your soil just doesn't have enough calcium.
So the logic makes sense on the surface, doesn't it? Eggshells have calcium, blossom end rot is a calcium problem. Put eggshells in the hole, problem solved. But, and this is a big but, when you really look at the plant's biology, you realize it's a huge oversimplification. Okay, let's actually dig into the science, because the real issue here isn't about what's in your soil. It's all about transportation. It's about how your plant moves nutrients around inside itself.
And here is the first big shocker for a lot of people. Your garden soil? It almost certainly has plenty of calcium already. I mean, if you regularly add compost, it is loaded with it. So let's be clear, the problem is not the supply at all.
Okay, so here's the key piece of the puzzle. Calcium is what scientists call an immobile nutrient. Think about it like this. Once the plant uses calcium to build, say, a leaf, that calcium is stuck there. It's locked in place. The plant can't just borrow it from that old leaf and send it over to the new tomato that desperately needs it.
So any new calcium has to get pulled up from the roots, and it travels through something called the xylem. The easiest way to picture the xylem is like the plant's internal plumbing, but it's a one-way street. It's an elevator that only goes up.
And this analogy just illustrates the core issue perfectly. Calcium is just a passenger. The vehicle, the bus, is water. If that water flow from the roots is inconsistent, if the bus stops moving, the passenger gets stranded and never makes it to its final destination, your fruit.
And as if that wasn't enough, here's the other reason the myth crumbles. The calcium in those eggshells? It isn't even in a form the plant can use quickly. It's calcium carbonate, which is a super stable compound. It takes years to break down in the soil, so it's completely unavailable during the one season your tomato is actually growing. So, if throwing eggshells in the hole is out, what is the real science-backed strategy for preventing blossom end rot? Well, it all comes down to the roots and water.
This is so cool. A fascinating study from the University of Florida looked at this exact problem. And they found that just by planting tomatoes with 5 inches of their stem buried underground, it made a massive, measurable difference.
And get this, these deeply planted tomatoes didn't just avoid the rot, they were way more productive. We're talking a whopping 28% more fruit overall. That's a ton of extra tomatoes. But here's the number that really blew my mind. This one simple technique led to a stunning 63%, let me say that again, 63% lower rate of blossom end rot. That's not just a small tweak, that is a total game changer. So how on earth does this work? It's incredible, really. When you bury a tomato stem, it triggers the growth of new roots all along that buried section. They're called adventitious roots. You're essentially creating a supersized root system, a much bigger engine for sucking up all that water and nutrients.
Okay, so the science is fantastic, but how do you actually use this powerful technique in your own garden? Let's break it down into a simple step-by-step process.
The most important thing to take away here is the shift in focus. We're moving away from the old myth of just filling the planting hole with stuff, and we're moving toward the new science of engineering a better, more resilient system for the entire plant.
Here are the 5 key steps. It's easy. 1. Pinch off those lower leaves on the stem. 2. Dig a hole or even a shallow trench deep enough to get that stem buried. 3. Lay it in and bury the stem. 4. Water it in really well to settle the soil. And finally, the crucial 5th step, mulch. Apply a good 2 to 3 inch layer. This creates a biological shield that locks in moisture, keeping that water bus running smoothly.
Okay, to guarantee your success, let's quickly cover 3 super common garden traps. These are mistakes I see people make all the time, and they can totally sabotage all your hard work. First is the nitrogen blunder.
Too much nitrogen fertilizer causes this explosion of weak leafy growth that the plant's plumbing just can't support. Second, please avoid the Epsom salt trap. I know a lot of gardeners add it for magnesium, but it can actually make things worse. And third, this is a critical rule. If you're using a grafted tomato plant, never, ever bury the graft union. That defeats the whole purpose of the special rootstock you paid for.
And here's why that Epsom salt is a problem. You see, nutrients like magnesium, potassium, and ammonium are all competing with calcium. They use the same biological pathways to get into the roots. So if you overdo it with those other fertilizers, you're essentially clogging the highway, creating a traffic jam that makes it even harder for calcium to get absorbed.
So when you really think about it, by understanding this science, you're elevating your role in the garden. You're not just following folklore anymore. You're actively managing a complex biological transport system to engineer a healthier, more resilient, and way more productive harvest.
So, the takeaway is clear. Skip the eggshells, dig with intention, and focus on what really matters, building a massive root system and maintaining consistent moisture. Now that you know the real secret, what other garden myths are you ready to question? If this explainer helped you, subscribe and join us to build the smartest garden on the block.